Hi everyone, this is John again, and I want to finish off a shorter video today, a shorter lecture, before we start on our new section, which is actually covering the Gypsies and the journey of the Gypsies, both historically and musically. And I'll speak more about that on the full Gypsy lecture. But I want to finish off the section on the Middle East and highlight some points, and also have you watch some YouTube clips of some interesting videos I've found related to Middle Eastern music. As we move into this last section, I'm starting to emphasize the idea of people in transition, people in movement, people moving from one country to another, people moving from one culture to another. And in that, people starting to question their identity on this planet as where do we belong? I'm bringing this up now more than I have in previous lectures because it's an issue, immigration issues and people questioning about where they're coming from and where their place is and who has the right to live in one area and not in another, and how all these different movements of people have created so much of the music that we have today. So we're taking elements from different places, mixing them, and creating new forms and new shapes of new things. So just finishing off with the section on the Middle East, I have a couple of pictures. I think the best way for me to show them would be to actually just show you them on my phone. And then I'll give you some videos to watch. So stop the lecture in between. So first, there's a couple of pictures of, I've spoken about a variety of different stringed instruments, like my sitar in the background. But talking about the interesting instruments of harp-like instruments. We spoke about in North Africa of the kora, the 21-stringed African harp from Mali. And its similarity, I have mentioned a little bit before about its closeness as a family of instruments to the ancient harps that are often depicted in hieroglyphics in Egypt, and also some forms of harps that exist in Egypt today, actually all the way down into Ethiopia as well. There's some variations of it. So just wanted to share some very interesting ancient pictures of these instruments. The picture's not coming out too great there. That's one. These are from the hieroglyphic depictions in the pyramids. So we are getting a little bit of light in the picture. Here's in a stone carving. That's better. And now we move to Greece. Of course, what they call the lyre or lyre. And as I mentioned before, the names of the modes and scales that are used today are coming from Greece. Okay, and finally, not least, but the Indian instrument, the santur, which is a hammered instrument as opposed to a plucked harp. So that just that you know the difference. So this is a hammered instrument, of which we're going to move from this when we move into the section on the gypsy music. We're going to be talking about an instrument. There's another santur. And you can imagine going from that into creating an instrument that actually, instead of holding the sticks in your hand and hitting the strings, creating keys, which gave us the harpsichord, clavichord, and finally the piano. So another instrument that is used very much in places like Greece and Turkey, especially amongst gypsies, is this more complex form of the santur called the cimbalom. And we'll be talking more about that when we get onto the section on gypsy music. So a place where many people of the Middle East or Middle East origin, moving all the way to Russia, of course, is Israel today. Israel has people from all over the world. North African Jews have come, Russians have come, people from Poland, Hungary, Romania. So there is a group that I would very much like for you to look at. And I'll give you a little assignment on that. Rather, let's go straight to this documentary, and I will put it in the at the bottom. I'll put a link to these videos, but it's a video called Light in Babylon. It's the documentary, ARTE in English. It's a wonderful woman originally from Iran. Who lived in Israel, who left Iran during the revolution, ended up in Israel, had some conflicting cultural experiences there, because in Israel she was told to let go of her Iranian identity, which of course she couldn't. You can't let go of your past so easily, or your cultural identity and your roots. And then she ends up living in Turkey and travels all over the world today, performing. And she actually started a lot of her performances playing in the streets of Istanbul, which is also a place of much diversity. And I'd like you to watch that documentary and give me a rundown of the documentary, especially her interviews and the ideas expressed inside the documentary. She talks about her heritage, she talks about her music, the challenges of living in a place like Istanbul, how they make a living, how her and her musician friends make a living. And nearer the end of the movie, she talks a little bit about, it shows you her singing one of her songs where she's singing about the woman of Iran, and gives some reference to the idea of, in Iran is a theocratic system where Islam is imposed very strictly, and women have to wear the hijab, the full head covering. She mentions a little bit about that in her song, and then she talks a little bit about politics and what her political views are and the importance of music. So I'd like you to take special notice of that. Where am I going with this? Okay. So that is in the documentary with the interview. Then there is also just a regular performance of her performing in the streets of Istanbul, if you want to watch that. But the main focus there is the documentary. So right now, switch this lecture off and go into that documentary, watch it, write your notes down, and send them to me as soon as you can. Okay, take notice of where this finishes. Finishes at 8:47. And I'm going to carry on with the next section. Hopefully you've just watched this documentary, Light in Babylon documentary. Okay, the next film I want you to see is a Jewish group. Very beautiful singing, and they often sing psalms, and in this instance you're going to be watching two different songs. I want you to take notice of the instrumentation. In the songs they're playing the oud, the dumbek, and two other very long-necked instruments. One of them is the saz, and the other one is the bouzouki, which is used very much in Greek music, throughout the Middle East by that matter, but it's a predominant instrument in Greece. So that is the Yama ensemble, and they're singing the Psalm 104. Please read the words because she's singing in the original Hebrew, which is a very beautiful language. I'd like you to watch that, enjoy it. I hope you're inspired and uplifted by the words of the psalm. And then the second one is also by the Yama Ensemble, and it's Miquedem, Miquedem, Psalm 23. And you're going to watch the live in the studio version of it. Please notice the frame drum that is being played, and the other percussion instruments. And as I said, the two most important, the stringed instrument is an oud, and also the two long-necked instrument. Right at the end of the song, one of the guys picks up a little frame drum, a little tambourine, and interestingly, it's actually a version of the tambourine from India, where you can actually squeeze the skin a little bit and bend the notes a little bit. He just plays that for a few seconds at the end. So go ahead and watch that, please. I'm not requiring you to write any notes on that. I would just like you to listen to some beautiful Middle Eastern music before we move on to the next section. Okay, so cut off here and go and watch the movie. Okay, coming back, last little section on this piece on the Middle East is a very short little video I want you to watch of a project that was called Quieter Than Silence. I'd like you to just listen to some of the music. He's a traditional ney player. Ney is remember the Turkish flute, or rather Middle Eastern flute that is specially used by the Sufis. And the connection of the sound of the flute and the music that is played on the flute to the Sufi philosophy and ideas. I'm going to send you a link to a poem, a very famous poem of Rumi. I would like you to read it. And I'd like to finish off with the Middle East section with that poem, so you get an idea of the philosophy I'm trying to express through this course, this sense of oneness, this unity of being through music, people transcending their cultural and religious differences, and I think Rumi's poetry expresses that in its best form. So please read the poem. I'd appreciate it if you read it. And then last but not least, I'd like you to watch a little clip from a film that became very famous back in the 70s and 80s. But for now, just go in and watch the Quieter Than Silence video. You do not have to watch the whole video. Just watch sections on it, especially from 12 and a half minutes, the end of one song, and what he says before he starts his next song. So from 12 minutes and 30 seconds, please listen to that all the way up to at least 25 minutes. Watch the dynamics between the instruments, the oud and the bass and the drum and the beautiful ney flute. And pick up on what he's talking about, what the purposes of his project, Quieter Than Silence. It also brings up the issue of, we can talk politics, we can talk ideas and that, but through music we express many of the things that you can't express through words. And I hope you realize that the very first class that I taught in this world music course, the phrases that I wrote up on the board, when words fail, music and dance begin. And the importance of music in our lives, especially in this challenging time. So thank you. So go off and watch that little bit, Quieter Than Silence. Okay, coming back to the video here. The very last little piece I want you to watch is a little snippet from one of my favorite films. And this is actually it was a film taken in Greece. If you haven't watched the movie already, please, you don't have to watch it, but if you'd like to, you can. It's a very interesting story about a Greek man and another Greek man comes from England. He's inherited some property I won't go through the whole story in detail, but anyway, he comes back to Greece to try to find this area of land that he inherited, and on this land is, I think it's a coal mine or something like that. And together with this character Zorba the Greek, they try to get this mine working again, and the whole thing is about this dynamic between these two people. He's very British in his tastes, even though he comes from Greece. And Zorba the Greek is really a pure Greek, very passionate, loves music. He actually plays the Sun Tour. He dances a lot, he drinks a lot, he enjoys life to the fullest, yet he's a very wise man as well. And right at the end of the film, after this whole story goes on, and it ends up in a big disaster. The whole plan to start the mine up ends up in a complete disaster. So either they could just cry about it, but Zorba the Greek and this gentleman, they're on the beach, and this is the way that Zorba the Greek responds to the whole disaster that's just happened. He actually dances. And so what I'm trying to do through this is expressing that through music and dance, we can really transcend many of our challenges and difficulties in life and get beyond words and ideas. So watch that. It's the Greek Zorba, Alexis Zorba, and the little scene on the beach with them dancing. That piece of music from Zorba the Greek was by a very famous Greek composer called Mikis Theodorakis. And that specific song and the music from that film became a worldwide hit. And at Greek weddings or at many functions, you would hear people playing that song. And there's also this traditional dance that goes along with it. What I try to do in my world music class is to be hands-on, of course, and I was hoping if we got together that we could actually learn this dance and do it in class, but of course that's not going to happen. But please enjoy watching that last little clip, and then finish your little write-up about the documentary on Light in Babylon, and that will set the stage for this next lecture, which is going to be Gypsy music and how Gypsy music has influenced music around the world today. And there will be some mention of some of the great composers and that have been influenced by Gypsy music. So more about the Gypsies in the next lecture. Hope you're doing all well, and take care. Enjoy watching these little video clips. I hope you've enjoyed watching these little video clips as we move on to the section on the Gypsies.